good fam? It's Coach Rai from Functional Flex. I'm breaking down the knee anatomy for you. We're going to talk a little bit about the knee and other joints that are involving things that may cause you knee pain, okay? So knee pain is very common. A lot of people have knee pain. And I want to make this video to kind of break down some simple science for you guys so that you can understand what could potentially be causing knee pain and how you can fix it yourself very simply and very easily. So first things first, check out this diagram right behind me. We're checking out the knee joint itself, okay? So very, very basic, simple joint. Now what I mean by simple is it's not complex. It doesn't move in many directions. Literally the knee only goes into flexion extension, okay? So in the sagittal plane, flexion extension looks like this. So basically it can flex and it can extend. That's what our knee does, okay? So if we're looking at it here on the diagram, you're going to see this is the actual knee joint itself. It goes between these two bones, the femur and the tibia, femur, tibia, and it just simply moves in flexion extension. So in a lot of ways, the knee is a very dumb joint, okay? And I call it a dumb joint because it can only do this. It can only go in the sagittal plane into flexion and extension. It doesn't move in other ways. It doesn't go side to side. It doesn't twist, or at least it shouldn't, okay? But what joints do twist that are actually placed on either side of this one are going to be things like, first off, our hip, okay? So if we look at the hip, we're going to see right here, the hip is a ball and socket joint. Don't know why that's blue. Ball and socket joint, okay? So if you look at the diagram behind me, the hip is a ball and socket joint, okay? This means that the hip actually inserts into this hole in your pelvis, okay? So it's going to go right into the actual socket for the femoral neck right here, going into this ball and socket joint with the femoral head. So what that means is, here is a quick kind of diagram of that. This would be your pelvis. This is the pelvic socket, okay? The femur and pelvic bone all kind of insert right in here. So once we get this in here, this can move in many directions, right? It can go side to side. It can go flexion, extension. It can even twist. You can do all kinds of things with your hip. It's a very complicated joint. It's not a dumb joint that only goes in flexion, extension. It literally moves in all the planes. So it's going to move in the frontal plane. It's going to move in the sagittal plane. It's going to move in the transverse plane. We're going to get 3 planes of motion in this hip joint, making it a very, very complicated joint, okay? So now, conveniently enough, if we look down at the ankle, which is on the other side of your knee, if you didn't know, this is where we're going to see the same type of thing, okay? So we're looking at the ankle right here on the diagram behind me, and you're going to be able to see, again, it's another very complicated joint, right? So we have a lot of different things going on right here, a lot of different bones coming into here, blah, blah, blah. Here is what really matters. It is also a ball and socket joint, okay? So your foot can move into flexion and extension. It can move side to side. It can twist all around. So again, we have 3 planes of motion happening here at the foot again. We're talking about having frontal plane, sagittal plane, and transverse plane all in the ankle. So now, funny enough, if we look at our full diagram, right, of an actual skeletal anatomy, okay, this is a bunch of hips and legs and knees and shit. So we're looking at, in the fucking sagittal plane, the fucking sagittal plane right here, we're going to be able to see that there's a ball and socket joint here at the ankle, okay? Ball and socket joint at the ankle, ball and socket joint up at the pelvis. This is going to happen at all of these, by the way. This is just different viewpoints. So we got ball and socket at the ankle, ball and socket at the pelvis. That means that here's our knee right in the middle, left to do whatever these other joints dictate. Now what I mean by that is the knee is the least complicated joint in this chain, okay? It's between a ball and a socket and ball and socket, which are 2 very complicated joints. Now if we lack motion at either one of these areas, if we lack motion at the hip and the pelvis or at the ankle, you're going to get compensation in the knee. So basically your knee, your body in other words, doesn't understand the difference between training or trying to survive. Okay, going to the gym, doing squats, doing lunges, doing all these different leg exercises, your body just perceives that as work. It perceives that as, hey, we're doing this, we gotta adapt, we gotta get through it, we gotta evolve, we gotta stay alive. So your body's gonna put you through it. So if you're lacking motion at your hip and at your ankle, your knee will try to become a hip or an ankle. And what that means, it's going to try to go into planes of motion that it should not go into. We're going to start to see the knee travel side to side. We're going to start to see the knee try to twist and rotate. We're going to start to see it trying to compensate and create the motion that it's lacking at either the pelvis or the ankle. And therefore what that's going to create is going to be pain. Because the knee's only function, again, we've talked about this a few times, is flexion and extension. And if it's only flexion and extension, then putting into a scenario where it's going to twist, it's going to turn, it's going to try to move side to side is only going to cause it aggravation, irritation, and make it cause you pain. It is not meant to be a complicated joint like the other joints above and below. So what you need to do if you have knee pain, you guys, a lot of times it's going to stem from the fact that you're lacking proper mobility at either the hip or the ankle. Very simple to fix this kind of stuff if that's the case, okay? First thing you have to do is figure out in what plane of motion that you're bound up in. It could be in the sagittal plane, which is front and back. You could have not good ankle flexion extension, right? Which is going to make the knee overwork, which is going to make the hip compensate, etc. You could also not have lateral motion at the hip or at the ankle, which is going to cause you to have a problem shifting one way or another, make that knee track in or track out. You could also not have the rotation capability, right? You can't torque those joints, so therefore the knee is going to try to twist and it's going to cause you compensation. So basically you need to make sure that your hip and your ankle are able to act in their fullest extent of range of motion. You should be able to fully have flexion extension of the ankle and the hip. You should be able to have full frontal plane side to side motion of the ankle and the hip. And you should be able to have full transverse twisting rotation at the knee, at the ankle and at the hip. We're just going to go to your knee if you don't got it, the other two. Point is, you got to address your mobility. And best ways to do this is figure out what area you're most bound up in and address it by doing the correct drills for that. So, if you need help with your mobility drills, it's very specific to the person, to be honest, so I'm not going to drop a ton in this video. I have a lot of resources on my website, teamfflex.com. You go there now, you can read some articles on this, or you can personally reach out to me and I'll help you figure this out. If you're somebody that's stuck with knee pain, you have a lot of knee pain, whatever, it's probably not the exercises as much as you think they are. Okay, there could be some exercises you're doing that are not best fit for you, they're not best fit for your function of your knee currently, whatever. But oftentimes it's simply the fact that you're not addressing the mobility and you're not doing stuff. And stretching, you guys, is not addressing your mobility. Okay, stretching is very generic, it's very boring, it doesn't really do anything for the body in a lot of ways when it comes to stuff like this. What you need to do is figure out what areas are bound up, what areas need to be released, what areas need to be stabilized, and then you need to attack them and create that environment so we can have strong and healthy joints. Because squats are not bad for your knees, lunges are not bad for your knees, leg extensions are not bad for your knees. What's bad for your knees is not addressing poor patterns. Coach Rye is out.